Ready?
Yep.
All right. Welcome everyone. At 6:30, I call the meeting to order. This is the August 11th Public Works Committee meeting. For attendance, we have Alder Myers, Alder Madden, Citizen Mary, Brandon, and that's it, right?
Yes. So member Knorr and member Gina Carnan both were unable to make it tonight. They let me know.
Okay. I think we just have a quorum.
Yep.
And first item of business is approval of minutes. Does anybody have any comments or edits to last meeting on July 28th? I'm not hearing anything, so we'll accept the meetings as published. And then going on to agenda item number 2. Consideration, discussion, and possible action on resolution 2025-40, Pheasant Crossing, public utility easements.
Yeah, I'll take that one. Thank you, Chair. So this is coming from our engineering department. So this is simply kind of the release and acceptance of some public utility easements in the Pheasant Crossing development. These easements will not have public utilities in terms of water mains, sanitary sewer, or storm sewer. And so the easements that are being released are along the sides of the lots, and then the easements that are being created are primarily along the rear of the lot lines. So yeah, happy to answer any questions, but staff recommends committee recommend approval to the council for the release and creation of these easements.
I guess I have a question. I'm not like an expert on these at all. I thought when easements were created, they continued indefinitely. Can you just explain why they're temporary ones and why they change locations?
Sure. So, right, I think when the neighborhood is developed, right, the plat map is created. Likely the need for utilities, or maybe the not need for utilities, drove the reasoning behind moving these around. So I think it's more of a administrative kind of cleanup after the neighborhood's been developed. Right, there are usually, right, easements are permanent. But then it takes an active council to either release them and then create new ones, which is what's happening in this case.
Okay.
But then there's, on a different vein, right, when there's projects, there's temporary easements when you're doing construction, or there's such things as like a fee easement where you're basically leasing the land for a project. So yeah, there's a variety of easements in our world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mary, do you have a question?
I'm just curious, like when new developments are created, who draws the easements? Is that the developer or the city, or is it like a combination?
So the developer will prepare them, and then it's sent to the city for staff review, and then plan commission reviews them, city council reviews them as well. So there's layers, but it usually starts in the hands of the developer in terms of how they want their property to lay out.
And if there's no public utilities like located in the area of the easements, like, can you just describe like a situation where the city would need to access this?
Right. So if there is a public easement, but there isn't public utility underneath the easement, a lot of times it could be for access purposes. So right, if there is a water main on the other side of this property, but the city needs to gain access to that property, they'll have an easement alongside it. That's usually kind of the main purpose for having an access easement. Or right, if utilities do need to be put in the future, they have that easement for an area for where they can go in.
Thanks.
So Ben, just one thing that I think the committee's found helpful in the past when looking at easement changes is having a map showing where the easements are.
Sure.
But other than that, I have no concerns about this. It's been through staff review probably a dozen times by now.
It is. And this has been reviewed by the city attorney as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'm gonna pull up the agenda, but I'll make a motion to approve the resolution with the release and approval of the release of the old easements and approval of the new easements.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Just to clarify, you want it based on using the recommendation on the agenda? That's fine. You
Okay.
will. When we vote on it, I'll say the whole thing. Any further discussion? All right, we'll vote. All those in favor of recommending approval of resolution 2025-40 for the release and creation of easements to common council for approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Next agenda item is consideration, discussion, possible action on a simplified rate case study for the Middleton water utility. Ben?
Thank you, Chair. We also have Mike Meyer, the water utility manager. Mike, do you want to kick it off? Or do you want me to?
We'll give it a go. Good evening, everybody. Light crowd tonight. So under Bill Burns's expertise, he advised that we, the utility, look into the beginning of a simplified rate case study that will help bring up. Basically, if we do these in incremental amounts of times, we can avoid doing a full-on rate case study, which is a lot more work. Generally, when you do a full rate case, it's a larger jump, if you will, in the rates. So every few years, we like to take a look, do a simplified rate case study, see where the water utility is at for its rates, if it's competitive with everybody else, if we need to come up. The water utility is looking at some extremely large projects in the next few years, very heavy lift projects. So bringing the rates up to where they should be, which sounds like there's room for them to come up, or they should come up, from my understanding, which is what is kind of the driving factor with this. That will help immensely with avoiding those large rate jumps, if you will, when we do these every few years. And I think it's been about 3 years, 4 years. It was before I started with the city.
Was the last full conventional rate case.
So there you have it. Yeah. But that is what we're looking for. The list of projects that the city is doing, we're looking at developing well 7. That's going to be roughly a $5 million project. Well, number 5 currently is a $2.5 million project. We're looking at the Northern Loop, which you will get a look at here eventually. There's a lot of large scale projects, and we need to stay competitive with our rates.
Okay. Alder Myers?
Yeah, Mike, thanks for taking the initiative on this. Could you kind of spell out for us how much money you think the utility is leaving on the table, and the effects of not collecting that money if we undertake these projects? So what would our increased expenses ballpark look like for capital borrowing?
I have not looked into capital borrowing yet, just because we're not there to those large scale items. Those are currently being worked on through the budgeting process, which will be pitched very soon. So basically what I can tell you is that starting this year with well 5 at $2.5 million, which we can cover several of these projects without having to borrow, although we don't want to deplete what we have entirely either. So we're definitely going to start, looking at that as a whole to do. but I don't think we're there yet, but it will be coming. So I can't actually give you a number. I can just tell you what some of these projects we're looking at are potentially going to come in at. And that's obviously before we get down the road where you wait another year or two or three. Obviously, the expenses add on every year that you don't do them too. So next 5 years is going to be a big lift in the water utility. We have a lot being thrown at us.
Yeah, yeah, you do. And I just, the reason I brought that up was I think it'll be helpful for a lot of us on council when we're explaining to our constituents and the utility, when the utility is communicating out to people in Middleton, to be able to say, if we end up dipping into our reserve funds and exhausting them, the overall cost to you as a ratepayer will end up being higher because we'll have to service the debt. And so I just want to make sure that we have a plan in place where we can communicate that out to people so that they understand as we're doing this rate case study.
That 100% makes sense. And I'm not gonna lie. If I do not understand something and I don't know something, I am not gonna pretend I do. And this is something that's new for me. I believe it's something new for Ben. Luckily, Bill Burns has been through this, and we are going to figure this all out together, and we will all get smarter with this for the future. So, um, all I know is that I was here to pitch this as a recommendation from Bill. I didn't know that that's where we were at as a utility, that we were time forward to look at a simplified rate case. But the timing is actually very, it's a very good timing for what we have ahead. And talking about the debt, that makes 100% sense.
I think, assuming this goes to council, we can certainly get those numbers together in terms of comparables to other communities and then right, paint the picture of what simplified rate case could do to rates versus right, what would the debt expenses be for these future projects as well.
Mary?
Question. Yeah, this felt like also something I was learning on the fly, I think, with it's very complex and there are regulatory bodies involved. And to that point, like I would consider the Public Works Committee kind of an entry point to like just checking on what we would recommend to council in this regard. So I felt like there were a lot more questions I had based on Mike's email. Specifically, obviously, I know that the rate changed in 2022. How often does the statewide benchmark change? And what is the explanation for why the water utility had a lower rate of return in 2024?
I would imagine. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Oh no, and go ahead, Ben. You definitely can take that.
No, so I think I would imagine the benchmark rate would change annually. But we can certainly confirm that with the PSC and kind of so that's the regulatory body that manages this. And in terms of why it was below the statewide benchmark, I would imagine it's because right we haven't raised rates since 2022, and if there's been authorized increases for other utilities, likely their rate of return will be higher. Is what I would imagine.
Because in my obviously personal opinion, very new to the council or to the committee, but I feel like we should have like a more fleshed out historical background on this and be able to really explain to people why this was something that we felt like we needed to go for. And I feel right now I don't know what the bigger picture of this looks like. To me, 2022 doesn't feel that long ago. So I just wanted to get a little bit of a bigger picture for what
to that question, and from what I understand, is roughly every 3 years is a very regulatory time to do and look at a simplified rate case. So you can make those smaller percentage, advance to all of your build people, if you will, our consumers. Versus if you wait 5 years, 6 years, then you look at that rate case. Now you're going to jump potentially percentages of that are way larger. People are going to see that, and it's going to, you tend to get more pushback is what I understand it from, where if you do these more regularly, then you can keep those percentages lower versus you wait a little bit too long. Now you got to take a larger percent jump, and now people are really noticing their bills are jumping. So that's what I understand why they do it every few years.
So is the simplified rate case something that changes every single year? Like that's not clear to me either.
This
Uh,
so this
So I guess our understanding is right. You file a full a regular rate case, then you can do a simplified rate case in kind of the in-between cycle of your regular rate cases.
But what is the regular rate case? Because everyone's saying like it's tends to be 3 years. Like how like is this clockwork that we're typically doing a rate increase every 3 years, and the simplified rate case would just negate the need to do that in the future?
the simplify the full on rate case is like a huge, what I've been told is it's a huge undertaking where they want to look at everything, all the numbers that come from the utility. It sounds like it's files, a lot of work. And it sounds like this happens every um, third or fourth time that you come around from these like 3 year periods. So maybe on the 12th year, you do a full rate case study that looks at everything you've done for the last 12 years. And then they base moving forward off of that and what the trends are doing. The simplified rate case just looks at where we're at now, what we're going to be faced with ahead, where our other municipalities around us are at, and just keeps us in the ballpark of not getting out of touch with basically everybody else, and then having to accrue that large percentage again, on the bill, where we can jump up a percent or two versus a 5% increase or something like that. But that's how I understand it, and I could be totally wrong. I don't hope I'm not, and I don't think I am, or I wouldn't say anything. But that's what I've kind of been led to believe. The Public Service Commission is our overbody that sets all the rules, regulations, literally for everything the water utility does. They are they are on us with our well 5 project about taking care of this, that. They are looking out for you, the consumer, as well as us, and guiding us to what we are supposed to be at, where we're supposed to be at, how we're supposed to do these things. The PSC oversees this, and they walk us through it step by step, along with Bill and Diego, and basically all of our billing. I can kind of, what I think I'm going to compare it to is every year we get a rate change from Madison Metropolitan Sewer District. Madison Metropolitan Sewer District, they foresee what they think their future costs are going to be for the year. They throw out a lump number to every municipality. I don't know what that percent is going to be. I turn around with whatever they give me, and I turn it on, and I have to send that cost on to you. So this is basically what we are doing, taking a look at what we have to set up for where we're at and what we are going to be, or what we're allowed to do as far as generating those funds, and not taking those giant increases further down the road where everyone's like, my bill went up, exponentially. These are going to set the little steps instead of the big giant jumps, if you will.
All right, go ahead. I'm gonna keep asking questions.
Yeah. So, Mike, because we're legally speaking the board of directors for the water utility, we do have a fiduciary duty to the water utility. Could you please explain the cost to the utility of not charging the rates, and the result of having to dip into our reserve fund bit by bit to make up that difference in any given year where we have to?
Right. So with the foresight of the large scale projects that face the utility to this day, um, maybe previously, I don't want to speak about prior to my history. I can speak about where we are at and what we need to see happen in the future. Being that perhaps the rates were kept a little bit lower last time, and we want to do that. We always want to keep. I don't like paying any more for anything. None of us like that. We're all affected by that. However, with the challenges that the utility is facing over the next few years, historically, and Ryan Wood spoke of this a couple meetings ago, the water utility generally over the history of it has maybe gone a little bit too lean in some of its maintenance categories. And they did that, protecting the consumer as far as monies and charging. However, now that we're on the back half of things, we're realizing that we maybe should have dealt with some things 10, 20 years ago that are now costing the utility exponentially more money from where we're at. This, now that we didn't increase those rates a couple years ago, and we probably should have, or kept them up a little higher to keep that reserve a little bit higher and our fund balance higher so we can not have to borrow the money. I mean, we're going to have to borrow at some point. We know that. However, it's in the short term. After we get through the next 4 or 5 years that are very project heavy, it really starts to lean out. So we have a large lift for a few years where we know we're going to be looking at some financial things. However, after that, things kind of calm down. I don't know if I hit what you were looking for, but I kind of I don't want to go too much into the past, if you will.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to criticize any past decisions. Just if we were to continue charging under market rates, the effects would be that we would be spending more money out of our capital fund, out of our capital account, which would require us to then borrow subsequently more money at a cost which would ultimately be greater to the ratepayer because they are paying that amount of money plus interest.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, that's 100%.
So,
Oh,
oh,
no, you can.
quick question on the letter. It says the rate of return, 3.58%. Is that the percentage of revenue over expenses? It is? Okay, that's all. Mary, did you have another question?
Yeah, just with the SRC, would that be a yearly thing? I'm still a little unclear versus doing, I know we're talking like the full conventional rate changes, like the giant audit and looking back and calculations and whatnot. If we went with the SRC path, how often is that going to come up? Is that an annual thing?
So based on the Public Service Commission's rules, a utility can file a simplified rate case once the authorized rates are in effect for a year. I don't anticipate Middleton going that route of doing another rate case study within a year. I think the goal is, right, you do a full rate case study, do maybe 1 or 2 SRCs in the interim between the full rate case study, but I don't think it's the utility's intention to do an SRC every year.
Okay.
It is not. I would agree. It is not. The water utility historically too has always kept a really good balance. We've always been stayed in the positive, and that's we've done that looking out for our consumers. We've done that looking out for the utility. However, at this stage, we're just met with a lot of challenges, and that's the driving force for this at this stage. However, this is also a timing thing. This is being that roughly 3 years out. These are going to come up basically every 3 years. We're not looking to start doing them every year. It's a lot more work than I need, and especially with what we're being faced with in the utility as a whole. And you will see this coming up. with our capital budget proposals very soon.
Mary?
Would the simplified rate case be both a base charge and like a tiered like usage rate? Like how, like what is going to be the biggest bump, or do we don't know that until we've already started the process? I know this is really early on, Mike. Don't want to put you on the spot in this way, but I honestly don't feel super comfortable like full on approving it if both of you are saying like we're still learning and we're going. Like I want to feel like yes, this is definitely what we should do, and if that like requires a little bit more explanation, then I think we should dive into that.
I'm not gonna lie. I wish Bill Burns was here because Bill would just he helped me with what I wrote to you and drafted in the agenda. That was 100% Bill trying to explain to myself and probably Ben what they're looking for. But Bill has been through quite a few of these with the city. It's something that is regular. It basically kind of has to happen because as I mentioned, otherwise you're going to see like 10% jump, 11% jumps. When we do it, not annually, but when we do it biannually every 3 years ish, like I say, it keeps it down to that 2 to 3 to, it keeps those lower percentage jumps. So it's less noticeable for everybody. Like I said, the water utility prides itself in being where it is as far as the money that it has. I hate the fact that with what I've come into, I'm going to be forced to look at borrowing, and I'm going to be looking at spending all this money. I feel like, oh, Meyer got in there and he's just blowing the bank, and that bothers me because I want to look out for everybody here. I got to look out for the utility. I want to look out for the best rates for my consumers. I want everybody to win. And with what we have to do in the next 5 years, we all have to win. We have a lot of things going on. And this just falls right in as far as the stages of billing and programming. This is basically what Bill explained to me. This is the time to get this started.
I think to answer a little bit or add on to Mike's answer, so right, we won't know what the extent of any increases would be until right the study is done that the PSC kind of authorizes and does for us. So right, I think we don't know the extent of any increases until the rate case is done.
Are we approving that increase with this recommendation?
No, we're not.
Just
We're-
approving to get the process started?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly, with the PSC.
I think it was a little, and I know, again, Mike, not to dwell too hard, but like the information that was given in the agenda packet didn't really talk about all of the big projects. I guess this was associated with that specific item. I know that we have like larger things with the operational budget and whatnot too, but it wasn't clear to me that the 3.58 isn't totally related to like the millions and millions of dollars of projects with the well that is going to be like, it is related, but it's not. It was just kind of vague. I felt a little bit, so I don't feel totally comfortable. I would like to hear from Bill. I feel like that would be helpful for me personally to try to explain what this is, but not trying to like stamp anyone's, put a spike in anyone's wheel. I just don't feel like I understand what this is really like asking for long term.
Yeah, I looked up the Public Service Commission a little bit. I know they cap the rate increases to 6% of revenue over, but I don't know if there's exceptions for capital improvement type projects. So I'm wondering if I'm not sure how to proceed here. Maybe our alders have an idea if you think we should make a different motion that's put on our agenda, or what do you guys think?
My impression from our discussion is that this is the beginning of the process, not the end of it. So we're not looking at saying, yes, we are going to rubber stamp an increase. We're saying that, hey, we're currently under We have a number of very large capital projects that are coming up in the next few years. They're going to require additional funding, and that funding shouldn't all have to come from the reserve. Right, we need to keep our reserve intact to an extent, but we also need to prepare ahead of time. Now, as a water consumer, I would much rather pace a smaller increment percentage over the course of 2-3 years, as opposed to waiting 6 years, do a full rate study and having to pay another 5, 6, 7, 8, 10% additional on the water bill. We have to look at how to start this process now so that once we have this rate case, we can be more informed about how to make financial decisions as the board of directors for the water utility. And we can't really move forward with that. And with that as an option, unless we move forward with the rate case study. At least that's my takeaway. Is that accurate?
It's accurate.
I think what you could, and you summed it up beautifully. Thank you. But I think ultimately what you're kind of looking at is this is the introduction to an audit, if you will. This is a look at the water utility, where we're at, what we're going to need going forward, what's going to be best for the consumer, what's going to be best for the utility. And that's all this is. This is just to say, yes, we should take a look at this. It's not making any other decision other than that. It's just to get the ball rolling.
So, see, I don't want to push anyone in any direction. So does anyone want to make a motion for anything?
I would make the motion to recommend to the Finance and Personnel and Common Council the authorization of the water utility staff to file a new simplified rate case with the Wisconsin Public Service Commission.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Prefer to get a full explanation from Bill Burns on what this is before I vote for it, just to understand what it is so I can explain it to people.
Okay. I think we have to vote on it because
Yep.
we have a motion and a second. We can amend the motion if we wanted to at this point. We could make it so you could choose not to vote or vote no.
I think I could just not vote, that's fine.
Well, because we will have a pretty thorough review of this in front of Finance and Personnel, where Finance and Personnel will go over the more fine details with Bill Burns in front of the right before the Common Council meeting. So if that's something that you feel like you need, that information would be there, and you definitely don't have to vote on it now. I just want to clarify that we are not authorizing the spending or additional raise of anyone's water bill. We're saying we need to gather all of the relevant facts, and this is the simplest way to go about that.
I think that makes total sense. I think I was like trying to research this and I'm not an engineer and I
Yeah,
just
me
want to
either.
get a full picture of it before I'm like sending my own personal approval. So I think that's it. But I appreciate the discussion, and Mike, you're awesome. And I know that you're learning as we go and you're representing yourself in the water utility very well. So thanks for describing everything.
I appreciate that, and I totally understand the non-understanding because I am kind of right there too, and I'm not ashamed to say it.
Yeah, I also would probably have more questions before we actually approve an increase when we get to that point.
When we get to that point.
When we get
I think we're quite a ways away
Yeah.
from any of that. We've got a lot of paperwork to get through to get anywhere near something like that.
Because if we were discussing a potential increase, we would have the rate case study in front of us with its recommendations.
Right.
And we could not actually increase absent that rate case study. We also couldn't potentially decrease, not to prejudge what the rate case study may say, however unlikely.
So I think we're ready to vote on this, and then if you should, I think you can just remain quiet, silent on it if you choose not.
Yeah, you can abstain from the vote if that's what you choose.
Okay, all those in favor of Public Works Committee recommending to the Finance and Personnel Committee and Common Council authorization of water utility staff to file a new simplified rate case with the Wisconsin Public Service Commission, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes with one abstaining. And next agenda item is, thank you, Mike, by the way.
Thank you, everybody.
Fine.
I'll definitely make sure I got Bill in my pocket over here next time to explain it as we do this. That'll work out well. Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Next item is consideration, discussion, and possible action on the 2026 to 2030 Public Works capital budget.
Thank you, Chair. I will take this one to start, and we also have Sean Alsrud, our engineering technician, who oversees our 5-year streets plan, so he will be participating in this first round. So in your packet, you have kind of 3 worksheets that represent the bulk or all of the Public Works capital improvement requests for the 5-year capital improvement plan. I wanted to start with the streets request. So I have it up on the screen as well. So this worksheet kind of follows the 5-year street improvement plan, which the committee saw earlier this spring, and council, both the committee and council approved it. You can see in 2026, the majority of our projects are resurfacing projects. And then in 2027, we have both High Road and Mound Drive slated for total reconstruction. So High Road on the northern part of the city is a rural road that is going to be converted into an urban road with all the developments around there. And Mound Drive is off of University Avenue, a much smaller segment of roadway, hence the smaller cost. So you'll see in the 2026 budget, we have dollars allocated for the design and engineering of those projects, and also soil testing and things like that that are part of the design and engineering process. Lastly, I also wanted to call out in 2027, we have the County Highway M bridge replacement. So that is at the intersection of Century Avenue and Branch Street. That's the bridge that goes over the Pheasant Branch Creek. That is part of a county project. So the county is doing resurfacing there. So we're a partner with that project. It's undergoing design right now, and that will be funded through TIF. So that kind of number in the 2027 column is obviously above the normal $2 million bucket that we have for streets. So that number is a little inflated because it includes that project just TIF funded. Moving out further, you see we've got a few more reconstruction projects, and then in 29, the large city county project, which is the Century Avenue resurfacing, and that extends essentially from County Highway Q and then runs west all the way to Parmenter. So basically the entire length of Century Avenue within the city is being resurfaced. It's a county project, but we're a partner with that. So yeah, Sean and I are here and available to answer any questions. You'll see in terms of, I'm not admittedly unsure how my predecessor did kind of the committee ranking, but I'm guessing kind of open to the floor if there's projects that should be bumped or whatever it may be.
Yeah, Ben, so shortly before this meeting, you and I emailed about the on-street accessible parking program.
Yep.
Did we mean to include that in the capital improvement requests, or are we putting that under a different line item?
That would go under a different line item. It would be our 3rd worksheet, which is the other. So that's
Okay.
where it would go.
Great, just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
The 2026 resurfacing, are those the Stonefield area
Yeah.
ones? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, in the 5-year plan, we have laid out kind of the exact streets that are being resurfaced. For sake of space, I didn't list them all out, but it's a significant number of streets that are being addressed in 26.
Yes, I think Stonefield's the big chunk of them.
Yeah.
And in desperate need of it.
That's what I hear. I was gonna drive through there today, just, okay, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. You won't need to check, you'll need a chiropractor.
Yeah.
I was on High Road recently, and that one 2 years out, and that one's in bad shape too,
And
with
then
all the construction through there.
the construction traffic is not doing that road any favors. So,
Yeah, but if we were to bump that one up before the construction traffic were done, we would also be shortening the life of the road significantly. So we have to.
I guess operationally staff are looking to make some improvements to that roadway kind of as a Band-Aid with the understanding that that will be completely resurfaced or reconstructed in 27.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
One thing that I mentioned during the last meeting that during the Conservancy Lands Committee, they talked about doing the underpass under the bridge.
Mhm.
So I definitely think if there's any way to prioritize that so that those things can happen, if there, I don't know, because is the thing underneath,
Yeah, so that would be all one project.
that would be all
Yep.
one project,
Yep.
yeah, because that touches like multiple
Multiple departments. for sure.
departments, so that is definitely a priority project. And because the county is a partner with it, it seems like it's just like a convergence of
Yep.
several
important.
important
For
projects.
sure.
The 2027 timeline is
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
that as far as prioritizing.
And when we voted to send that over to the county, Kim, I can't remember if you were on the commission committee
So
then or not. But if you recall, when we voted to send that over to the county, we did so saying that the design that the city of Middleton wanted included a bike underpass. And the only thing I can't remember is whether we said it at a 20-year flood or a 100-year flood level. I think
I want to say 20, but now that I'm kind of reaching back, I want to say that was in fact right before I came on the Public Works Committee. But in review, I do want to say that it's a 20-year flood and not 100.
that, yeah, because from what I remember, we had concerns about bridge height.
Yep.
And head clear. Yeah, these priorities all make sense to me.
And I don't feel the need to reinvent the 5-year wheel.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's been.
We put a lot of work into
Yes,
into
yep.
that plan already.
Okay.
What would we even have a chance to change on here? Maybe something by year?
Yeah, or if, I guess in the 2026, right, if there's a priority that you felt, I don't know, maybe you thought high road reconstruction design funding should take priority over resurfacing, like you could reorder it that way.
But of course, then we would also need to find the money and move other things around in order to hit.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting high road be moved up in terms of the years, but more just saying.
Just
on this
within the
priorities.
year, yeah.
Right.
Within the years.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed like 26 to 27 is a big jump, but is that maybe the cost is including the county?
Correct. In 27, it includes that 1.8 million, which is TIF funded. So, yeah, it won't be hitting the general fund. Correct.
And that this is Sean with Public Works. Those portions with the county projects in 2027 and 2029, the numbers you're seeing there, that's the city portion. So that's our half. So that's an important one to remember. The resurfacing is about a $2.5 million project, but the 1.2 is what the county is estimated will be our portion.
Thank you for clarifying that, Sean.
Okay.
Any other questions on the streets CIP?
I guess for a question like the committee responsibilities, I have somewhat of a interest in moving up the Century Avenue project from 2029 to earlier, like 2028.
I think,
But
I guess from a staff perspective, it's kind of all dependent on the county. So they're kind of the lead
That's the
agency.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, if I can chime in on that one. The original plan was to do Century Avenue in 2027, but the city, in talking with the county last year and the year prior, we have traffic signal updates that we're doing right now. We have additional signals that we need to update, and then we've got some water utility work that needs to be done. And the city needed some time to get those projects done prior to resurfacing. So the county actually bumped that, I think, from 27 to 2029, so we could get those projects done. So that's why we are doing that in 2029.
Yeah, I thought we talked like a year ago and got bumped out because our committee chose to prioritize like Stonefield. No, you don't remember it that way?
I don't remember it that way.
So
My recollection is that it was project
We needed
driven.
time.
We needed time and that it was county driven as well.
yeah,
County funding driven.
Stonefield bumped a few other. So Stonefield is a resurfacing project. That's not a reconstruct project, and that was pushed up to 2026. That was a decision by the Public Works Committee, and then I pushed out other projects that we had in 2026, smaller projects to make that work.
And a lot of that was so we could consolidate all of that resurfacing work in Stonefield over one season and not over multiple
I
seasons.
remember
Yes.
that. Gosh.
Yeah, we originally had it over 2 years, and we just lumped it into one now.
Okay.
Would you like a motion from us on this ordering?
I think we could do it as one, maybe one motion for the three different categories. But obviously I can spell out if there's any changes to priority or additions or changes type of thing.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion just on the capital budget,
Correct. And this is
item 4, and then we'll talk budget, operating budget after this, right?
Yeah, and I'll go through the fleet capital and then the other capital as well before we can get to the motion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
But wait, there's more.
there's more.
So much more.
So much more. Okay, I will bring up the. So this sheet in front of you is the fleet additions. So obviously the city has a fleet replacement plan, which looks at all the current vehicles in the budget. Brad Hopwood, who's our assistant director of public works, and Brian Gebhardt, our fleet mechanic, lead fleet mechanic, work with Bill Burns, our finance director, to kind of set out that replacement plan. We usually have kind of a set budget amount for what the city will invest in vehicles so we can make that work. So Brad, I don't know if on the top of your head, next year we plan on replacing X number of squad cars, maybe 3 or 4.
We generally do 3 a year. This year we had 4 because we had an administrative vehicle.
So that's kind of a separate line item in the budget that Bill Burns manages in the finance department. So what's in front of you are additions to the fleet. So you'll see the first two, one is an iron worker and the other is a floor cleaning machine. These are 2 pieces of equipment for our municipal operations center, where our public works, parks, water utility, and stormwater all work out of, located off Parmenter Drive. Those are kind of in-house things. The iron worker is, Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, it's for fabricating pieces of metal that we use on all city vehicles.
Correct. Yep.
And then floor cleaning machine, pretty self-explanatory. So it's pretty large facility. Current machine is not working. So in order to have a clean and safe environment, we're requesting a floor cleaning machine. And lastly, you'll see the 2 international patrol trucks. So this is tied to a staffing request that is not part of your packet. We're still working on it with our finance counterparts to kind of figure out what the budget implications will be. But if so these trucks are really only needed if staffing is increasing. Otherwise, they're not. That's kind of why they're further down on the priority list. So that's kind of where that's at. But yeah. Anything to add on fleet additions, Brad?
Nope, that was it.
I assume that any vehicle purchase is going to follow our very well thought out sustainable purchasing.
Yep,
Act.
exactly. Admittedly, it doesn't necessarily, I mean, not that it doesn't apply, but it's right, an iron worker.
Mhm.
I think it's a machine for the building, floor cleaning machine. Quite frankly, if we can get a battery or electric powered one, I think that might not be a bad idea.
Yeah, that's what I priced out was a battery operated one.
Awesome. So right, patrol trucks. So these are the large dump trucks that you see plowing the streets and hauling equipment. That is one area where, unfortunately, kind of the more sustainable vehicles are haven't caught up yet from the traditional gasoline or diesel fueled vehicles. I certainly think down the road it's something that we'll continue to monitor. Right, we've seen the Tesla trucks and things like that. So I think it's in the future, but these patrol trucks, right, are the ones that are pushing the snow and all of that and hauling the dirt. So it's not in the cards for these specific vehicles, but right, for our replacement plan, we always are looking for, at a minimum, hybrids, plug-in hybrids, or fully electric vehicles.
Alder Myers?
Yeah, so Brad, if you could just walk us through on the iron worker, the cost savings that we realize fabricating our own parts versus buying them. I know the answer, but I think it might be helpful for our friends on the finance committee.
A lot of stuff we do is custom. It's not something you can buy at a store. So
Okay.
this piece of equipment, it's 30 years old already. We've gotten our money's worth out of it, and this one will last about that same amount of time. So you get your money's worth out of it. I'll give you an example. We utilized that when we had the floods to be able to fabricate screening, so we we had a problem with our pump bringing in aquatic life into the pump and it not making it through. So we use this machine to fabricate something so we could save that. But they use it almost daily.
Okay, yeah, obviously custom fabricating on a rush job would be in the
Expensive.
very expensive range.
Springfield Welding charges us about $150 an hour, if that tells you anything.
That does. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. And last but not least. So we have a kind of the last category in our capital improvement plan. So this is other. So right, it's not necessarily equipment, but either professional services or kind of smaller replacements. A couple of highlights I wanted to bring to the attention of the committee. The first item is the traffic safety screening study. So this is something that I have a little bit of experience with at my previous community. So what it is it's we basically, the city would hire a consultant, go through an RFP process, but the idea is to look at all the intersections within the city, look at the crash history, look at the data, kind of determine, put together a list of, I don't want to say the most dangerous, but maybe most accident-prone intersections, places where improvements can be made, and then also looking through it of a lens of where could the city qualify for state or federal grants. In my previous community, we used this as a tool, and they were able to secure over $3.5 million in federal and state grants to make improvements, safety improvements at an intersection. So it can be anything from expanding a turn lane. So if there's problems with rear end accidents or whatever, expanding the turn lane, give people more time, changing the timing at signals of intersections, something as simple as a reflective backplate on a signal head. So that's a kind of a fluorescent, you'll see it on some signal heads. So at night, the signals are better seen by drivers. It can be pedestrian improvements. It can run the gamut of things. So I think it's $25,000 to get the study done, but I've found, at least in previous communities, it's certainly paid its worth in terms of identifying potential safety issues within the city. Another thing I wanted to hit on was the pedestrian safety improvements. This is kind of a program, if I'm calling it that, of potential areas of where, right, the committee, residents, the police department, public works, engineering all identify areas within the city that pedestrian improvements can be made. Could be anything from a raised crosswalk, like we mentioned on Franklin. It could be further RFBs for pedestrian crossing, bump outs to make pedestrian crossing easier, speed bumps as well. Any kind of using it as an umbrella for any safety improvements that can be made to streets throughout the city. So that's kind of what that ask is for. And then lastly, like Charles had mentioned, the committee in March had requested that staff include funding for implementation of on-street accessible parking. So this was looking at public parking within the city and where accessible parking could be added in on-street areas. So that will be added to the final budget ask that goes towards finance and common council. And that would be in the amount of about $40,000 in 2026 to accomplish basically all of what the priorities were that the committee had laid out. And just for notes, that was in the March 10th Public Works Committee meeting is when that was discussed.
Yeah, I think during that meeting, we kind of laid out that it was okay if we did this over multiple years for a budget impact.
Sure.
It just needed to happen.
Sure.
When we adopted policy. So if you are only able to find, half of that amount,
Sure.
just the important thing is that we make progress towards the goal.
Absolutely. But yeah, happy to go through any of the other items on the list, and yeah. Or any other questions?
Can you talk to me a little bit about the need for the Century Avenue Road Diet Study?
Sure. So this is kind of a joint initiative through planning as well. And the idea being, right, with the resurfacing coming up in 2027, did we say? Sorry, 29. Right, if any structural changes are going to be made to the roadway, it should be made in conjunction with that. I guess I will say, anecdotally, I don't know if the traffic numbers would support a road diet, right? I think it's a pretty heavily traveled thoroughfare. But knowing that it's also heavily accessed by those not in cars, I think it's certainly worthwhile exploring. And also, I'll state, so right, the county has, I guess, final jurisdiction over what happens on Century Avenue because it is County Highway M. But in order for the county to kind of approve or give the green light to any changes, they would need to see the results of a road diet study. So that's kind of the impetus behind looking at it.
Oh, thank you.
What is a road diet?
So currently, right, Century Avenue is 4 lanes of traffic, right? So it's 2 lanes going each way. So the idea behind this study is to see, could that be shrunk down? Could it be just 1 lane in each direction, providing for bike lanes, provided for a larger terrace, provided for any number of off-street improvements, and then the idea being, while maybe the level of service in terms of traffic, like pace of traffic, basically, right? We understand that it would slow things down, which has its own benefits for traffic safety, right? So kind of weighing all those options.
Thanks.
And the other reason we would do that study is to make sure that if we were to implement a road configuration with fewer lanes, that we're not creating a dangerous situation with wait times at the intersections. We have a standard for how long we expect cars to wait at each traffic light. And when you push that too far back and you get the intersection down to a D or an F, you start getting a large number of drivers making interesting choices at the intersection. And you also cause everyone else to wait for upwards of 2 minutes, potentially during peak transit. So it creates a traffic issue and an idling issue.
It's kind of weighing the, right, are there safety improvements that can be made by narrowing the roadway, but then also weighing it against the traffic volume and level of service.
I have a question, just because we just came off the High Point Road traffic or like neighborhood traffic, the speed bump implementation, whatever. And thank you for bringing that to the council, and that was great that they approved it. And just for my own reference, or all of our references to, did the pedestrian safety improvement line item exist prior to 2026, or because this would be like relevant, this would like be essentially what we could dip into for those projects?
No, this did not exist prior. But right, I kind of see this being as again, an umbrella program for, right, if through a neighborhood traffic management program, if they recommended bump outs at an intersection, this is an area where funding could be kind of earmarked for something like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and actually you're gonna deal with some praise here now. So Ben, although he hasn't told anyone, actually held a cross-department meeting with the police, planning, and public works staff to take a look at a more comprehensive pedestrian safety strategy for the city of Middleton. And this is the part where you get to brag about the good thing that you did.
Yeah,
and this is what's coming out of it.
Yeah, I'll
among
just
other
say,
things.
right, it was really good to get, I think it's really easy for us to operate in silos, but with something like pedestrian safety and traffic safety, it touches public works, engineering, obviously the design of the roadways, planning when they're working through the design of neighborhoods and things like that, and obviously the police department for enforcement of traffic safety. So it was really good to get all of the people in one room, and it's a standing meeting moving forward. So excited to be able to address individual issues as they come up, but then also look big picture, things like these traffic safety studies and how we can plan for it moving forward.
And just one other thing on that particular line item, I anticipate that a chunk of that is going to end up as part of the Old Creek and Pheasant Branch Road neighborhood traffic management.
Yep.
I feel like that's the next one that's the furthest along as far as design and neighborhood activism.
Yeah. That has in progress.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
That's makes
Yeah.
total sense and directly impacts a lot of people's safety. So that's awesome.
Sure.
Okay, so I think staff is asking for committee input on, is this the last of our?
Yeah, this is the last of the spreadsheet. So happy to jump back and forth if needed, but yeah, looking for a recommendation, and then right, if there's any changes priority wise that you'd like to see made, open to that as well.
I just want us to add the on-street accessible parking in there as priority 8.
Priority 8, okay.
Hey, it's not a bridge repair year, so.
It is,
Got that
right,
going for
correct,
us.
correct. And just I get a little FYI in that. So that is usually the county does bridge inspections kind of on our behalf, and then they'll let us know, hey, we found defects in here, so please make it.
With Aldermeyer's addition of the parking, I can make a recommendation to recommend the 2026 to 2030 Public Works Capital Improvement Plan to the Finance Personnel Committee and Council for approval.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of passing the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Next item is consideration, discussion, possible action on the 2026 Public Works operating budget.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I also have operating budget worksheets in your packet. I will not go through them line by line unless there's specific questions. But the only note that I would make is what's not included is the aforementioned staffing additions. So Brad and I are working with our finance and we have a new HR manager to kind of see where these new people would fall in and get a accurate budget number so we know what we're asking for money wise. But that is the only major changes to our operating request. But happy to answer any questions, or if there's any highlights you want me to look at, I can certainly do that.
What positions are you looking to add?
It would be two streets crew members.
Okay.
Kind of the rationale behind that is right as we're adding subdivisions and as we're growing, right, our maintenance needs also grow. As any department in the city can say, but that's kind of our initiative is looking to keep up with maintenance of our infrastructure.
The other thing that we're looking to do with the for lead mechanic is get rid of the lead mechanic position and change that into a fleet manager position. So we could have two mechanics and a fleet manager. So that person could act as a mechanic, parts room clerk, and do all the extra admin work for the fleet.
Great, thank you.
I guess I'll just highlight that this also includes so obviously it covers engineering, streets, fleet. The operating center has its own operating budget, and then refuse and recycle. So Public Works is responsible for managing the contract with Pelletieri for our refuse and recycle collection. And then we also operate the Middleton Recycle Center out at off of Parmenter. So that's kind of the gamut of what we've got.
Yeah, Ben, could you walk me through the decision item on the engineering and administration sheet? It's $4,000 down.
Yes, yep. That is for Bluebeam software. So you may have heard it's a kind of a project management tool. In particular, I think this was a Luke initiative, and of course he's up north today, but it would allow basically multiple engineers to be looking at a plan set and making comments on it. It's something that's, I believe, used quite often in the private sector, so this would mesh well with our developer review for plans and things like that. So that $4,000 would cover any startup costs as well as our annual subscription to the Bluebeam software. This is the loan decision item there.
It's the one decision item that you've given us.
Yes.
Yeah, could you walk us through the cost savings that this would realize?
Yeah, so this would we would divest from what we currently use, which the name is escaping me now. And I'd like to think to pull back the curtain a little bit. So a lot of our developer review is a lot of back and forth between developers. Obviously, developers want their project approved in a timely fashion so they can get started. City staff want to look out for the best interests of the city and make sure we're not approving anything that would adversely affect the city infrastructure, et cetera. I think this also would allow for kind of real-time collaboration between staff and developers, kind of ease a little bit of the communication hurdles that occur, rather than sending the most recent edited version. Staff would be able to see it in real time for where plans are.
I've never used Bluebeam, but all the A&Es that I work with love it, use it
Yeah.
all the time. It definitely saves time for collaboration. I know there's a cost, recurring cost.
There it is, yep.
Um, you guys need training on that software too?
I'm sure there'll be some startup training. I know Luke has used it in a previous role, so I would imagine he would be able to provide some at least hands-on experience. But right, I think it's a pretty commonly used item in certain engineering fields.
Okay. So, is there any other questions for Ben, or guess we can take a motion whenever somebody wants to. I can make the motion on this one. I move that we recommend 2026 Public Works operating budget to the Finance and Personnel Committee and Common Council for approval.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I was including, to clarify, I was including the $4,000 as well.
Yeah.
Understood.
Are you agreeing to
Yes.
that too? Your second?
Correct.
All right. No discussion, so we'll move on to the vote. All those in favor of passing the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Thank you, Chair. So lastly, we have both the brush and leaf collection costs that Alder Myers had requested. So in your packet, you have a staff report which includes the brush collection costs from 2024, as well as the leaf collection costs broken out over 2022. There it is. As well as, sorry, the leaf collection costs broken out from 22 through 24. One note, we had an error in our previous memo that we had brought to the committee in the labor costs for 2024. We had incorrectly used the an average hourly rate. So this has been updated to the correct number. So you'll see kind of a gradual increase in leaf collection costs, and then our brush collection costs in 2024 came out to just shy of $60,000. So, and of course, the total broke out from there. So, yeah, happy to answer any questions. I know we talked about leaf collection last time. Brush collection, so that's something that occurs. Brad can speak to this as well. It occurs on a regular basis, multiple times a month. Usually staff will go through a quadrant of the city, get that taken care of. It is a manual labor task. My previous community staff were not necessarily a fan of it, but it was a necessary task that we were doing. It involves staff jumping out of the truck, hand loading the piles into a chipper, and then the chipper goes and dumps, and then rinse repeat throughout the process. So it's a common practice, but yeah, certainly a labor intensive and can be dangerous. Certainly want to highlight that staff need to take care when they're operating that type of machinery.
So the mechanics labor that becomes necessary due to the extra running time on both the chipper and on the F-550 that we use to haul it. Is that under maintenance cost, or is that under labor cost, and is that included in the staff time?
Brad,
That's part of the maintenance costs. And for the most part, when those machines are worked on, unless it's a drum, it's fairly simple work that our streets department crew takes care of to not take our mechanics away from other stuff.
Okay, thank you, Brad.
Yep.
And we have 2 chippers, correct, Brad?
Yes.
And these are equipment shared across forestry and parks and public works.
Forestry does have their own chipper. Theirs is significantly smaller, and they use ours quite a bit more just because of the size of their chipper. So yeah.
And I guess the last note I'll make, in the previous meeting, we kind of talked about what is a stormwater expense versus a general fund expense. So brush is not considered a stormwater expense, but leaf collection is. If you kind of think of it in terms of the leaves can end up in the stormwater system, you'll see it come fall time when leaves are in the gutters that obviously end up into our waterways. Brush, a little bit different, where that's right, kind of a static branch. So that is a general fund expense. And that is something that's recent, obviously with the creation of the stormwater utility, that we've shifted those expenses to the utility.
And have we included the cost of insurance? We're self-insured, obviously, but having staff engaged in certain types of work does impact the ultimate rate that we do end up.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. I think, right, it's certainly, Brad can probably comment on this more, but I would imagine brush collection is probably one of the more dangerous tasks that we ask staff to do in our offices.
Yes. Yep.
And I understand why you weren't able to get that number.
Yeah, kind of baked in,
But it is
If
one that I do think we should consider.
if you're considering that, trying to add, with benefits and what that's going to cost, I would say adding in 35% to labor costs is going to get you a fair shot for that.
Okay. I just I thought it was important for us to see these numbers because as we're looking at our public works budget for years going forward and the expenses that we know we're going to have, I do think it's important for us as a committee to look at what is and is not a core mission of public works. And for us as a department, I rate pedestrian safety and maintenance of our city roads higher than I would this particular service. So it may be worth exploring in future years, potentially switching this over to either a fee for service model or stopping altogether, depending on what our budget looks like.
Good to have numbers.
Yeah.
What is like, I know it says staff time. How do the crew working that are collecting brush and leaf, do they feel like people utilize the service like in a significant enough way, or are they like, oh, I'm doing this today and I'm gonna get two people that leave 2 branches out and then I'm gonna be doing this for 6 hours?
I can tell you that there's quite a bit of residents that love this service for brush collection.
Yeah.
We go weekly, we spend a half a day to a day and a half each week with 2 people picking brush.
Yeah. I mean, we
So
utilize it. I'm just curious how the staff feel about it. Yeah.
they don't mind picking brush. It's something that we kind of give to the newer guy to do. It's one of those jobs where it's like, all right, the new guys here, they can do it.
Yeah.
But we do have veteran staff that do help out all the time as well. Obviously, we don't just stick it with one person all summer. But yeah, I don't think they'd be upset if it wasn't a thing that they did anymore.
I guess I'll add, right, with heavy storms that happen during the summertime, that's obviously a driver too as well in terms of the volume that we collect. Public works staff were responsible if a limb goes down during a storm, we respond, remove it from the roadway, and then obviously come back the next day and chop it up. So it expands from the daily thing that we do.
I saw on the policy that it is unscheduled, and I know that that's due to a variety of factors, weather, what else is going on, you know, storms, how the fleet is actually doing it itself, all of it is put together. But if we were looking at discussing things, I don't know if it would ever, not like a scheduled day, but like a generally, because with leaves, like it's nice to know if it's going to be in the next week or if it's going to be 3 weeks, because if there's a big gust of wind and then I've, you know, done all my leaf collection myself, but you'd like to utilize the service that the city's already providing and whatnot.
Sure.
I don't have an answer for it. I'm just throwing it out there that it was like your neighborhood could be in the first 2 weeks and your neighborhood could be in the second half of the month if we were going to stick with it and try to juice it and try to get everyone trying to utilize the service. That could potentially be a direction to go. But I don't know.
We were for a while there we were sending out daily updates, but I don't think everybody signed up for Notify Me, but we were sending out daily updates. We'll be in quadrant 1 today or quadrant 2 today, so on and so forth. I can work with Brent McHenry to get that pushed out on social media this year to see if that would help out.
I think for leaves, for the brush, I feel like when something falls, you just kind of set it on the side of the road. But like with leaves, if you're like, no, it's gonna be this week, or it might be, you know, next week, you might be people have a little bit more of an impetus to like get it out there. But again, that's whatever you guys think would work the best and is the best use of staff time.
We'd certainly talk with Brent and yeah, see if we can incorporate that again. So.
Yeah, I think that actually goes to a broader discussion that our committee wants and needs to have about effectively communicating out public works projects and services that the department provides, because I think Kim's nodding.
Yep, that's why I put it on there last time. So
Yeah.
I agree. I feel like we definitely could make some improvements in how we communicate out to residents.
For sure.
All right, any other discussion on that topic? Now we'll move on to liaison briefings. Mary, did you guys have a Conservancy Lands Committee meeting since our last Public Works?
We have not, so I do not have an update for that.
Okay. Alder Madden, Ped Bike and Transit.
Yeah, we met last week. I had a number of technical difficulties attending that meeting, so I didn't get to say a whole lot, but we did get a really good review of a couple of different ways that different communities that are similarly sized address pedestrian and bicycle safety, and how can we work together to improve safety, particularly for bikes and pedestrians moving, say, you know, level 3 conflict zones down to level 2, down to level 1. 2 cities that we looked at were Rochester, Minnesota, and Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. Lots of great ideas. Replacing bollards with planters, for example, using different kinds of pavements, protected bike lanes, which is potentially what we could see on Century Avenue. Right, if we decide that we're going to move that forward, keep that bike path going, if we can shrink that down, then we could potentially have a protected bike lane on Century Avenue, which would be great, at least until it meets up with the North Mendota path. That was the big discussion for that group. It was fascinating to look at all those pictures. I really enjoyed it, but and then of course looking forward to again meeting our joint meeting.
Yeah.
Which I think will be great.
What is that meeting?
That is not scheduled,
Yeah.
Okay.
but soon.
All right, and Don is not here for Water Resource Management. Is anybody else on that committee?
No, and I'm not sure that they've met since we last.
They haven't.
Their last meeting was a blockbuster. It was a long one.
They meet shortly before Conservancy Lands.
Okay.
And then our last agenda item is future meeting agenda items. So we'll just go around the room. Alder Myers, I'll start with you. Do you have anything for next meeting?
Yes, I do. I want us to look at how we're communicating out to the public about public works projects. About 2 hours before this meeting, a constituent emailed me about the lack of communication from the city. His road, and he was very detailed. So I'd like us to have that conversation.
I would second that, having mentioned it at the last meeting as well. And that we can circle back to some of the responses that the city has given and whether or not we think that those are the right ones.
Alderman.
No, it's the same one.
Mary?
I don't have anything.
I was actually, mine's very similar, so we may want to combine them, but I was gonna ask Ben if you could brief the committee on current capital projects under construction,
Mm,
just for 5 to 10 minutes on progress.
Yeah.
Just a progress. I don't know if I'd want to do it a regular thing, but just maybe next meeting. Actually, I won't be here for the 28th, so I might not be here for that. But you guys can maybe talk about it. So at least the alders and the committee members know what's going on. I'm thinking like Parmenter,
Sure.
Century and Allen. What was the other one we talked about by the elementary school?
Franklin,
Oh, Frank.
Franklin. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, point of order, Mr. Chair, you could actually just make this a standing agenda item.
But this was gonna be the test one to see if you guys all thought that was a good idea.
gotcha. No, I like it.
So that at least, okay, yeah, let's do that.
And if I could, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, because now it's late, add to that one of the very first, Public Works meetings that we had, you very nicely laid out at the end of the meeting, like, hey, here's some stuff that's gonna be coming.
Sure.
So I very much liked that, and it's nice for preparation purposes.
Yep.
I know that, we usually get the agenda on a Thursday, but it's cool to be able to think about like, all right, what am I gonna have to look at, especially because someone like me likes to actually visit sites.
That is something I will include both of those in future agendas.
Thank you.
All right, well, we reached the end of our agenda, so I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.